I'm taking a short respite from episode 18 in order to talk a little about my recent trip down to San Antonio. But rest assured, I'll wrap up my visit to Mother Jones in the next regular episode. Be sure to check out the CrossPods Network for more podcasts to fill your playlist with stuff you love to listen to. And now, some notes from the Plague Year. Maybe my favorite Plague Year meme has been the one declaring that introverts have been planning for this moment our entire lives. I don't mean to downplay people's fears, but I also have to be honest. I feel like the sky's been falling for most of the last 20 years, certainly since 9/11, and I think I have panic burnout. I just can't anymore. Giving in to hysteria feels like trying to salvage a bad relationship. My trip to San Antonio almost didn't happen, but only because the conference I was going to, the annual conference put on by AWP, the American Running Programs Association, was almost canceled. But I'd already planned on going, and I was hoping to connect with a few publishers to entice one of them with my new poetry manuscript, and I was looking forward to seeing some friends I don't see very often. Now, did I know that San Antonio had recently had a report of the coronavirus? No. Did I know that the city announced a state of emergency through the weekend I was going to be there? No. And, by the way, I'm fine. And there were actually a lot of people in San Antonio doing very non-paranoid things like eating dinner outside and sometimes even hugging and holding hands. And I also didn't realize my bus was heading into Nashville on the heels of a few tornadoes that touched down the night before. At home, all we got was the rain, which it's been doing a lot of all winter. But when I got to the bus station in Nashville, all the screens, except for the two that show the arrival and departure schedules, were tuned to the local news, talking as the body count rose. I was only in Nashville maybe an hour, and in that time the number of people they were able to verify from their viewing area rose from 15 to 22. It was difficult to imagine that being the end of it, especially by the devastation being shown on the news. Tornadoes scare people, justifiably, because their precise impact is difficult to predict. They land on one house, skip two others, rip two trees out of the ground, leave one standing. They're almost alive in their unpredictability, though people are far more predictable than tornadoes, regardless of what any of us thinks. Evolution has taught us to be creatures of habit. We do the same things over and over because they provide a specific result, or because we're hoping that it will provide a specific result that we haven't gotten yet. Even bad decisions and questionable actions happen for this very reason. It's in our wiring, which is why it didn't surprise me as much as I'd have liked for it to when I saw that a large chunk of the people who were supposed to be at the conference decided to cancel at the last moment. And it didn't really surprise me when the official signage announced that we were to refrain from shaking hands. Good God, I thought. How is anyone supposed to pass out business cards that no one reads and then leaves in the hotel for housekeeping to throw away? The alternatives to handshaking were dubious at best. Some advocated for elbow bumps, others for soccer-style shin kicking, which reminded me of this girl in elementary school who had a crush on me and demonstrated it by either stabbing me with sharp pencils or kicking me hard in the shins. I was an early adopter of high tops thanks to her, and it still didn't do me much good. One friend of mine who also attended the conference in spite of the vociferously declared but substantially unexplained danger in the form of invisible floating things that are going to kill us all, like red shirts in a classic episode of Star Trek, suggested that we should all curtsy. I added that maybe we could all jazzy hand our introductions, and maybe if it's someone that we really like, we could use fussy hands. I posted about this on my Instagram account, taking a picture of the signage that declared that we would not, I repeat, not shake hands. I was happy that one conference goer, an indie publisher, Whiskey Tits, agreed with my sentiment, adding that we were in Texas, which meant we were required by social contract to spit and shake hands with everyone. It's always nice, isn't it, when you know you're not alone in watching the country drive itself insane? The last time The whole time I was in San Antonio, I kept thinking about this woman I talked to in Nashville. I don't think she was waiting on a bus. She was just using the crowd to hide. She wore a dirty, broken medical torso brace like an accessory. I set my pack down in the chair next to her to rest a bit, and she asked if I was from Nashville. When I told her no, she said she was wondering if I knew anything about all the poor people who died. She pointed at one of the televisions. Poor people, she said, with affect, like a proper noun. Because she knew, like I know, who really dies first. This didn't help my opinion of the people who ditched AWP, supposedly educated people giving in to paranoia and fear. I try to understand. I try to look at it through different eyes. But it's not easy. True, fear is such an easy feeling to give into. It's buried in our wiring, fundamental to the thing that makes us human. Fear is the base upon which we build most of the things we hold sacred. Because we're afraid of life without them, and even though in having them, we're afraid of what our sacred institutions really mean. A tornado can seem random, or it can seem a natural consequence of the conditions that created the storm in the first place. It depends on the eyes you use to see it, and whether you can shake off that vision to view what's really there. And the truth is, no matter what's floating around to kill us, viruses or tornadoes, for example, the fact is, poor people die first. Every single time. Thanks so much for listening to episode 19 of A Record of a Well-Worn Pair of Traveling Boots. Please be sure to show some love by subscribing to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you catch your podcasts. Check out past episodes and look for episode 18, part 3, in 2 weeks. And if you really enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page. That's www.patreon.com/wellwornboots. That's patreon.com/wellwornboots. You get additional access, including the special patron-only podcast episodes and goodies starting at $1 a month. That's right. For the cost of a cup of coffee in $19.95, you can support stories and art you enjoy. That's patreon.com/wellwornboots. Thanks again for listening. May the road always rise to meet your feet.